Doing today? Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Monday, July 12th, 2022, and we are live. I just wanted to come on for a few minutes and talk about this 10-week online class that I teach normally on Saturdays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, where they did teach you in school. I'm going to teach a special session of it today, as soon as I finish this broadcast. So we'll start a little after 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? And one of the things, so you can still register for this online course. We have the information in the thread of the broadcast. And we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. One of the things we're going to talk about in class today is dealing with Hannibal Barca, Hannibal of Carthage, and the Punic Wars, the Punic Wars between the Carthaginians and the Romans, and we'll get into Publius Cornelius Scipio, who took the surname Africanus. He took the surname Africanus after the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. Okay, so we're going to deal with a lot of that in today's class. I just want to do a brief overview, and I teach this class at our online school. It's not on Facebook or YouTube, but I wanted to do a brief preview here. So when we deal with something interesting here, dealing with Hannibal Barca, I'm about to bring up the slideshow presentation, because in the class we do a PowerPoint presentation, we have references, articles, video clips, all of this, okay? And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. All right, now, hold on. I'm going to bring this up just a second here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. All right, so there was all of us have heard of Hannibal Barca, not Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs, not Hannibal George Papard from the 18, but Hannibal Barca, okay, the Carthaginian general who's one of the greatest military strategists in history, if not the greatest military strategist in history. So there was a series called Barbarians Rising, that came out from the History Channel a few years ago. And Barbarians Rising deals with 700 years of invasions, invasions into the Roman Empire. Okay, 700 years of invasions of the Roman Empire, and what leads to the Roman Empire falling, and at least the western portion of the Roman Empire falling in 476 AD, when the Vandals and the Visigoths crushed the western portion of the Roman Empire. So this Barbarians Rising came out in 2016, okay, and I watched it. It was very, very good on the History Channel. And the first installment of Barbarians Rising dealt with Hannibal Barca and the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, okay. Now we know Hannibal Barca lived from 247 BC to 183 BC, and we know that Carthage is going to be destroyed by the Romans. Carthage is destroyed by the Romans in right around 146 BCE, before the Common Era, 146 BCE. If you watch the documentary A Great and Mighty Walk, that deals with the life of Dr. John Henrik Clarke, that the Punic Wars are dealt with there as well, in the effort of the Romans to destroy Carthage. Okay, but in this series here, and I want to go back to the PowerPoint presentation here. In this series, the History Channel's documentary Barbarians Rising tackles the fall of Rome over the course of 700 years of invasions. However, the most recent episode that aired Monday, now this is from this article is from June 2016. Okay, the most recent episode that aired Monday depicts Hannibal Barca of Carthage as a black man, okay, which he was. He was Carthaginian. The Carthaginians are the descendants of the Phoenicians. He's of African descent, and the Carthaginians are the descendants of a larger group of Africans called the Garamantes. And the Garamantes are who the African Moors are descendants of. The African Moors coming from North Africa. We know they go into the Iberian Peninsula in 711 AD, led by General Tariq ibn Ziyad. So the Moors that we talk about, they're descendants of the Garamantes as well. Okay, so the most recent episode depicts Hannibal Barca of Carthage as a black man, and many white history buffs are crying foul over what they refer to as historical inaccuracy. But this is false. Hannibal was African, and so was his father. So were the people, generally speaking, of Carthage. Now, Carthage is in North Africa, the territory that's basically modern-day Tunisia. That historically, generally speaking, was Carthage. We know that the geographical boundaries that exist today in Africa largely come from the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885. That's where those geographical boundaries come from. Those are not, generally speaking, the geographical boundaries that existed before the Berlin Conference. Okay, those about nine or so European nations carve up Africa into colonies, and they draw the geographical boundaries around the areas that have the natural resources that these respective European nations want, because they were fighting each other for hundreds of years, fighting and killing each other over the riches of Africa. And it gets to the point where they say, look, okay, Africa's large enough for us to carve it up into colonies, and we don't have to keep killing each other over this. Okay, so this is the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885. Now, in the series, Hannibal Barca is portrayed by Black British actor Nicholas Pinnock. And if you've been following the African History Network Facebook fan page, if you don't, you should. The African History Network Facebook fan page. You know, a couple years ago or so, at the top of the page, the banner, we had this picture here of Nicholas Pinnock. He did a fantastic job of portraying Hannibal Barca, and I'm glad they portrayed a man of African descent who you can look at and tell he's black. You can look at him and tell he's of African descent. You don't have to listen to the tonality of his voice or sit there and look for 5 minutes trying to figure out, is he white? Is he passing for white? Is he passing for black? What is it? Okay, so you can look at this brother and tell this is a brother. All right. So Hannibal Barca is portrayed by Black British actor Nicholas Pinnock. The famous Carthaginian was a thorn in the Empire's side, the Roman Empire side. He became a general at the age of 26 and managed to unite barbarian tribes to stop Rome's imperial rise. The military genius was famous for climbing the Alps with war elephants, whose sole purpose was to stop the Roman Empire. Whose sole purpose was to stop the Roman Empire. And one of the things they do in the series, and we're going to, in the class, today's class, after I do this broadcast here, I'm going to teach the class. So you can register for this 10-week online history class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they did teach you in school. We have the information at our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We also have the information in the thread of this broadcast here. And I'm going to post a link here also. The class is on sale $60, rather than $130. You can use this with your family also. You can use this as a family registration if you want, for people living in your house. So that's fine. And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire course. All right, now, Hannibal Barca ultimately wanted to invade Rome, but he failed to do so. So in class, we're going to get deeper into Hannibal Barca. We'll talk some about the Punic Wars, things like this. We'll talk about Publius Cornelius Scipio, who took the surname Africanus And contrary to popular belief, Africa is not named after a Roman general. Africa is not named after Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. That is blatantly false. And we'll deal with why also. I deal with this in the class also. We'll deal with why. This is why you have to understand language, and you have to do more research than just what's at the surface. Now, there have been debates over the race of Hannibal Barca. The debate still continues to this day. Now, it's not much of a debate. Proper documentation ends all conversation. It's not much of a debate. There was a good article from AtlantaBlackStar.com from June 7th, 2016. History Channel portrays Hannibal as black. White people cry foul over historical revisionism. Okay. Now, Carthage was one of the ancient African empires that Europeans tried to claim as their own. Carthage was one of those ancient African empires that Europeans tried to say was created by Europeans. No, it wasn't. These were Africans. These were black African people. All right. Now, in his book, World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1, history scholar J.A. Rogers, Joel Augustus Rogers, J.A. Rogers asserts, quote, the Carthaginians were descendants of the Phoenicians, a Negroid people, and that in fact, until the rise of the doctrine of white superiority, Hannibal Barca was traditionally known as a black man. Hannibal Barca was traditionally known as a black man. So what happens is, and we deal with this in the class because we deal with about 50,000 years of history in this 10-week online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they did teach you in school. As Europeans are coming out of the Dark Ages, using the teachings that the African Moors take into Europe in 711 AD, as they come out of the Dark Ages in the 15th century, the 1400s, and they start conquering other people's land. You have Anton Gonzalez going to what today is present-day Mauritania in 1441, which basically starts the transatlantic slave trade. He picks up about 12 African people, takes them back to Portugal. As you have explorations by colonizers like Christopher Columbus, who was crucial to understanding the spread of the transatlantic slave trade. And Columbus's 4 voyages, starting August 3rd, 1492, when he set sail on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and he conquers the Bahamas and Hispaniola. The western third of the portion of Hispaniola is what we have of what we call Haiti. Okay. And you have Puerto Rico and Panama and Honduras and things like this, Jamaica, which Columbus conquered in 1494. As Europeans are exploring, as they are conquering these new lands and setting up plantations like sugarcane plantations, as they are exploiting the mineral wealth in these new lands and exploiting the labor of indigenous people as well as African people. And there were African people already in these areas also. When you read The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep, he deals with this in his book. We deal with this book in the class, okay? When you look at the African presence, going back at least 51,700 years ago, we know that there were African people in North America, including the land we call the United States of America, at least 51,700 years ago, specifically in the area that we call today South Carolina and Georgia, that area. These were the Khoisan. The Khoisan have the oldest DNA on the planet. They come from Southern Africa. And this article here from AtlantaBlackStar.com, 5 ethnic groups that prove the first humans were black. They cite the 2012 October study from Science Magazine that found that the Khoisan of Southern Africa are the oldest ethnic group of modern humans, with their ancestral line originating about 100,000 years ago. The Khoisan, formerly called by the derogatory term Bushmen, are genetically unique, and no other currently known population had separated so early from our common modern human ancestor, according to the report. Okay, so here are 2 Khoisan women, all right, and the Khoisan live mainly in Southern Africa, in territories spanning Botswana, Namibia, Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. They are largely divided into 2 groups: hunters and gatherers, or hunters and gatherers called the Sans people, S-A-N-S. And then you have the keepers of livestock called the Khoisan people. The Khoisan languages include the distinctive click sounds that are not found in the languages of their neighbors. Now, the click language is the original language, okay? And the Khoisan come from Southern Africa. They're the short-statured Africans. They're the ancestors of the Ainu and the Tuawe. They go all around the world, and they were also here in this land that we call the United States of America, but they were in, South America, all of this as well. Okay. Dr. David Imhotep deals with this in his book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Now, if we go back to Hannibal Barca, just bear with me, this is over 200 slides in this course that I deal with. So let's go back here to, okay, we're talking about Joel Augustus Rogers, J.A. Rogers, right? Okay, so Carthage exists. Carthage exists from 813 BC to 146 BCE. Okay, before the Common Era. Can you all hear me? Okay. I want to check the sound. I have the air conditioning on here in the office. I may have to turn it off. I just want to check the sound right quick. Can you all hear me? Okay. Let me know. Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you all hear me? Okay. Let me know. Testing. Okay, sounds all right on my end. Those watching Facebook, YouTube, let me know. Can you hear me okay? All right, now. Okay, yes, now. You couldn't hear me okay before. It may have been interruption with the internet. Okay, in this book, I keep breaking up. Let me try to refresh the screen. Just a second. Stand by. Let me see. Let me try to refresh. Okay, you hear me loud and clear. Try to, if I'm breaking up, try to refresh your screen or go out of Facebook, come back in, or go out of YouTube, come back in. Okay, because I was testing it. I'm monitoring it here through my smartphone, and it sounds clear. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it sounds okay here. All right, so in his book, World's Great Men of Color, J.A. Rogers, Joel Augustus Rogers, and if you study Malcolm X, you know that Malcolm X talks about J.A. Rogers and the teaching of J.A. Rogers. Okay. The Carthaginians were descendants of the Phoenicians, a Negroid people, and that in fact, until the rise of the doctrine of white superiority, Hannibal Barca was traditionally known as a black man. Okay, so what happens? Okay, Juanita says it's better now. What happens is, as Europeans are coming out of the Dark Ages, conquering other people's land, extracting the mineral wealth out of people's lands, traditional images that were African get reinterpreted as European. And this happens as you have a rise in the European powers. You have a rise in the dominance of the European phenotype. Okay. As you have a rise in European powers, you have a rise in the dominance of European phenotypes. And this is what happens when you go from a black Madonna and child, you go from that to the decolorized version. All right. To the white Mary and Jesus, because Europeans were worshiping basically African people, and they were worshiping the Black Madonna and Child, which comes from Asar, Auset, and Heru, and Auset being the virgin who gives birth to the baby Heru on December 25th of a virgin birth, and they are known as the First Holy Trinity. This is in Europe even before the Moors go in 711 AD. Okay, and if you look at Runoko Rashidi's book, Black Star, the African Presence in Early Europe. Okay, if you look at his book and pages 95, and I have this book somewhere. We've got Golden Age of the Moor here, edited by Dr. Ida Van Sertima. That's one of the books I teach from in the class. You don't have to buy any of these books in the class to be able to follow along, but And some of these I can scan some of the pages and show them to you. Where is, oh, here it is right here. Another book we use in the class is Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder. I finally got a brand new copy back, was it May 1st, 2022 at the Hot Peak Conference, the Palm One Conference here in Detroit. Brother from my brother Haki. But this book right here, Black Star, the African Presence in Early Europe by Runoko Rashidi. We know Runoko passed away August 2nd, 2021. He was a friend of mine. He became an ancestor, brilliant historian, brilliant scholar, archaeologist, anthropologist, brother Runoko Rashidi. But this book, Black Star, the African Presence in Early Europe, this deals with a lot of the history of the Moors in Europe. But page 90 and 91, he shows, these are pictures he took himself, most of these. These are statues of the Black Madonna and Child in Europe. So we see page 90, Madonna at Eisleben, Switzerland. Okay, this one right here, the Black Madonna and Child statue here. We see this painting, Our Lady of Jasna Gora, Saskatchewan, Poland. All right, this one right here. We look at this, the Black Virgin of Madrid, Spain. Okay, we see this statue here. The Black Virgin and Child statue in St. John's Church, Luxembourg City, Luxembourg. This one right here also. So when you study this history, you see that Europeans were worshiping African people. And we see this in the worship of the Black Madonna and Child. You look at page 89, Black Madonna and Child painting, Kremlin, Moscow. This one right here. You look at this picture here, La Moreneta, Black Madonna and Child statue, Montserrat, Spain. And we know it's going to be Spain and Portugal, what was called the Iberian Peninsula, that the Moors first go into in 711 AD, because that's right above Morocco. Okay, and so this is where they're going to go into. If we go back here to the presentation, how's everybody doing? Hopefully I'm coming through okay. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay. And this is just a brief overview of this 10-week online class that I teach. I'm going to teach another session of the class as soon as I finish this broadcast. We have the information here in the thread of the broadcast here. You can register for this 10-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So as Europeans are coming out of the Dark Ages in the 1400s, the 15th century, as they start to conquer people's land and extract the mineral wealth and build Europe back up. Keep in mind, Europe had lost between 1/4 to 1/3 of their population because of the Black Death, okay, the bubonic plague, which hits in spurts from 1347 to 1400. And as Dr. John Henry Clark talks about, Europe was land poor, people poor, and resource poor. Okay, so when you look at, for instance, Hercules, okay, Hercules was originally depicted as an African. Hercules is then going to be reinterpreted as a European. When we look at Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, okay, not the 16th Chapel, the Sistine Chapel, okay, he uses the images of his aunt and uncle for Adam and Eve. And he uses, and then he depicts God as being a European and the angels being a European. So power is the ability to define and shape reality and have other people accept your definition of reality as if it were their own. So as Europeans conquer people's land, build up, rebuild Europe, and you start having this rise in the rise in the dominance of the European phenotype, they reinterpret a lot of these previous images and then project that to the world and use their military force to enforce this, as well as the image of Yeshua, or what the English call Jesus, because the letter J didn't exist until 1630 AD. The letter J coming from the letter I. Okay, that didn't exist until 1630 AD. So this is why it's important to understand this chronology of history and understand what happened. So these are just some of the things that we deal with in this 10-week online class that I teach. And we're actually going to have probably do about 12 sessions this time around. Okay. And if we look at this very quickly here from history.com, this one deals with 7 things about the Sistine Chapel that you didn't know. Okay. Who still needs to register for this 10-week online class? Because I'm going to teach another session. I'm going to teach another session today as soon as I finish this broadcast. Okay. Today is Monday, July 12th. So we're going to, I'll be here for a few more minutes. Then we're going to teach a session of this at my online school. So who still needs to register for this 10-week online class? 7 things you may not know about the Sistine Chapel. Check out 7 surprising facts about the famous ceiling and the artist who painted it. Okay. So in 1508, 33-year-old Michelangelo was hard at work on Pope Julius II's marble tomb, a relatively obscure piece now located in Rome's San Pietro in Vincoli Church. When Pope Julius II asked the esteemed artist to switch gears and decorate the Sistine, Sistine, not 16, the Sistine Chapel ceiling, Michelangelo balked. For one thing, he considered himself a sculptor rather than a painter, and he had no experience whatsoever with frescoes. Okay. Now, if we go look to contemporary, contrary to popular belief, Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel in a standing position. 3, working on the Sistine Chapel was so unpleasant that Michelangelo wrote a poem about his misery. He does this in 1509. Okay, 1509. All right, just a second here. This is freezing up on me. All right, stand by just a second. Can you hear me okay? The screen froze up on me. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. All right, just a second. Let me go back to, where is this here? All right, here we go. Sorry, the screen froze up for a minute. Number 4, let's see. 3, working on the Sistine Chapel was so unpleasant that Michelangelo wrote a poem about his misery. Okay, then number 4, Michelangelo's masterpiece has proven highly resilient. Number 5, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. Okay, so then the Sistine Chapel ceiling's most famous panel might depict a human brain. Okay, they talk about that. In the section entitled "The Creation of Adam," figures representing God and Adam reach for each other with their arms outstretched. Their almost touching fingers are one of the world's most recognizable and widely replicated images. Some theorists think the scene also contains the unmistakable outline of a human brain, brain, formed by the angels and robes surrounding God. According to Franklin Meshberger, a doctor who pioneered this hypothesis, Michelangelo meant to evoke God's bestowal of intelligence on the first human. Now popes, number 7, now popes are elected in the Sistine Chapel. All right, now when you so what happens is, so you're looking at the 16th century, right about 1508, Michelangelo starts to paint the Sistine Chapel. Okay, and there was another piece on this that had some good facts on this also. I'm gonna try to pull this up. Just a second. bear with me here. Where is that? It was something dealing with this date in history from the History Channel, because I get the emails each morning dealing with this date in history. Let me see, related Renaissance art, 10th Egypt, Vatican, Vincent. Let me try to pull this up here. Just a second. Okay, let's look at this. 16 minutes. Okay. So they had one from this date in history. Sistine Chapel opens November 1st, 1512. And okay, I have to look for it. It's not what I want. But anyway, all right. Public. Okay, this, okay. November 1st, this day in history, November 1st, 1512. This one right here, this is what I was looking for. Okay, this day in history, November 1st, 1512. Sistine Chapel opens to public. Sistine Chapel opens to public. The of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, one of Italian artist Michelangelo's finest works is exhibited to the public for the first time on November 1st, 1512. Michelangelo Buonarroti, the greatest of the Italian Renaissance artists, was born in a small village of Caprice in 1475. We can skip over all that. Now, he was called to Rome in 1508 to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, the chief consecrated space in the Vatican. Michelangelo's epic ceiling frescoes, which took several years to complete, are among his most memorable works. Central in a complex system of decoration featuring numerous figures are 9 panels devoted to biblical world history. Okay, now what I say may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Okay, what I say may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. But just because you disagree with what I say does not mean that what I'm saying is not true. Just means you have to do some more research to understand what I'm talking about. Okay. World history is in world history books. Religious literature is in religious literature. When you talk about biblical world history, that's a contradiction. If you understand world history, you know what I'm talking about. When you talk about biblical world history is in world history books. Religious literature is in religious literature. Have you ever been to historical museums that like deal with like world history? Not like an American history museum that just deals with American history, but like world history museums, okay? You ever wonder why you don't see biblical characters in world history museums? You ever wonder why you don't see biblical characters in world history museums? Because world history is an account of what happened. World history is in world history books. Religious literature is in religious literature books. If you mix world history with religious literature, you're going to be very, very confused. And world history is also backed up by archaeological evidence, things like this. Okay. So when they say something like biblical world history, that's a contradiction. If you understand world history, you know what I'm talking about. Now, the most famous of these is the creation of Adam, a painting in which the arms of God and Adam are stretching toward each other. In 1512, Michelangelo completed the work. After 15 years as an architect in Florence, Michelangelo returned to Rome in 1534, where he will work and live for the rest of his life. Okay, blah, blah, blah. All right. But what you have here is you have Rome, a dominant power. They're out of the Dark Ages, okay? Romans in Italy. They're out of the Dark Ages. They're conquering people's land. You have them reinterpreting these images because previously they were worshiping the Black Madonna in China. Now they repaint, they redepict all that stuff as being European. And then they spread that across the world because they're rising in power. As you have a rise in Europeans coming out of the Dark Ages, conquering people's land, extracting the mineral wealth, subjugating people. As you have a rise in the European powers of these European nations, you have a rise in the dominance of the European phenotype. And as Dr. John Henrik Clarke talks about, Europeans colonized not just the minds of non-European people, but also the images that are projected to the world. And he said the most powerful image that they colonized was the image of God. And when you worship a God that does not look like you, and you worship a Savior that does not look like you, then what you do is become the spiritual prisoners of those people whose depiction of God looks like that you worship. And it's like you're putting your fate into their hands. And those people on earth who look like the image of God, or who are the ethnicity or the race of the same God of your imagination, the same image of God that you have implanted in your mind, those people on earth that look like that also subconsciously, tacitly become the gods in real life on that planet. They become the representations. They become the physical representations of those gods that you worship. When you worship people that don't look like you. And this is where we see this get twisted around. When Europeans are coming out of the Dark Ages, we see this get twisted around. And then we see the transatlantic slave trade begin in the mid 15th century, 1441. And we see prior to this, we're going to see the subjugation of the Africans known as the Moors that are going to start. And this continues the conflicts between the African Moors and Europeans that we see start in Europe. That's going to continue with the transatlantic slave trade. One of the biggest mistakes that is made when we deal with this history, and that when I was taking my Africana Studies classes at Wayne State University in like 1994, 1995, here in Detroit, when we started the history of the transatlantic slave trade, they started in the mid 15th century. They didn't deal with the Africans known as the Moors going into the Iberian Peninsula in 711 AD. Okay, they didn't deal with thousands of years of African history prior to that, and the Moors are taking the teachings from ancient Africa, from the Nile Valley region of Africa, into Europe, and these teachings bring the Europeans out of the Dark Ages. It's going to be to our detriment because everything we taught Europeans came to kick us in the behind. Everything we taught them, everything we taught Europeans came to kick us in the behind. Okay, so if you start studying transatlantic slave trade in the 15th you're not going to understand. The transatlantic slave trade is a continuation of the wars that were taking place and the conflicts that were taking place between the African Moors and Europeans. And then we're going to see that when the Moors lose control in Granada, January 2nd, 1492, Boabdil surrenders. We see Columbus setting sail August 3rd, 1492. We're going to see some of the Moors flee. Some of the Moors are going to flee Spain. Others are going to be conquered and enslaved. And you're going to see some of these Africans taken into these colonies that the Spanish set up. One of the mistakes that's made is thinking that when the transatlantic slave trade happens, this is the first time that Europeans, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the Germans, later the English, when they get involved in 1562 with John Hawkins, Sir John Hawkins, the Dutch, things like this. The mistake that's made is thinking this is the first time they came in contact with African people. No, they've been dealing with them for hundreds of years, at least. There were African people in Europe even before the Moors go in. But let's just look at that period of time from 711 AD to 1492. They were dealing with Africans for hundreds of years. They knew who they were. They knew where they came from. They knew what the Moors brought into Europe. They brought the science. They brought the periodic tables. They brought something called alchemy, which today we call chemistry. They brought the chemistry. They brought the algebra. They brought alcohol, al, that Arabic prefix, which means of the. They brought different types of foods, different types of oranges. They brought different types of musical instruments. They were creating treaties to create surgical instruments to do surgery. They were teaching Europeans how to do surgery in different parts of the body. They were creating standards for physicians. They created standardized tests for physicians to have to pass. This is what the Moors are introducing in Europe. They're building libraries, all this stuff. And they were also intermixing into the European population, okay, and changing the complexion to varying degrees of Europeans. So Europeans knew exactly who they were. And this is how you get also something like, well, this is how you get like a Queen Charlotte Sophia, who was the wife of King George III, who was the king that the third colonies are fighting against during the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. But this is also how you get the African Moors heads, the African heads on these national flags of Corsica and Sardinia. Okay, Sardinia is a Italian island in the Mediterranean. They have 4 African Moors heads on their national flags, and Corsica is a French island in the Mediterranean, and they have an African Moors head on it also. And if you look at the Moors head with the bandana and the hoop earring, now originally instead of a bandana, it was a blindfold to signify that these Africans had been conquered and they were prisoners. And if you go to Sardinia's official website and you search on it and you go look, they have another version of the flag on their website. It's Sardinia Turismo. And we go through deep into this in the 10-week online class. They show a version of this flag where the headband is a blindfold to show that these African Moors were conquered and were prisoners, because that's what the original flag was. But because of tourism and to be politically correct and things like this, they turned the blindfold into a headband. But all this is connected to history. This is also connected to the history of the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade does not just fall out of the sky. It's not something that just happens. That is the culmination of hundreds of years of history and the culmination of these conflicts between these Africans and Europeans that continue. It's really Europeans getting revenge on these African Moors, okay? And because there's hostility that builds up. against the Moors because of how powerful they become, wealthy they become in Europe, things like this, but also intermixing into the European population and changing the complexion of Europeans to varying degrees, especially in Spain and Portugal. And the complexion of Europeans in Spain and Portugal traditionally was darker than those in England because there was a greater influx of the African Moors going into Spain and Portugal because the Iberian Peninsula is right above Morocco. England, even though it was impacted by that intermixing, it was to a lesser extent. We're going to see this intermixing in Austria and Germany. We see the African presence in Austria and Germany as well, okay? But it's not going to be as much as we see like in Italy, Sicily, Spain, Portugal, etc., because those are closer to North Africa and closer to Morocco. Now, so this is why the way I deal with the transatlantic slave trade, the way I teach it is different than some traditional ways, because the history that I study goes long before the transatlantic slave trade. So you have to deal with a chronology of this history. Okay, now we talked about Hannibal Barca. I'm gonna wrap this up in a few minutes. Who still needs to register for this 10-week online class? I'm gonna post it. We have the link to the thread of the broadcast. We have the link to register for the class here in the thread of this broadcast. Also is on our website, our new website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Okay, the class is on sale $60, regularly $150. Oh, sorry, regularly $130, also $60. We have a bundle pack where you can register for both classes for $100. Okay, so really about a $360 value because there's some bonus classes. There's some bonus lectures you can get from me also in digital format. If we look at this here quickly, and you can go to our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We have the information around the homepage. This is our new website that I spent time building, and I'm adding to it also. But if you just scroll down, information about our radio show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show. And then we have a bundle pack here. You can register for both classes for $100. Click right here, register here. Well, you got the information here for the classes, okay? All right, now, Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. As soon as I finish this broadcast, we're going to teach the online class today. So you can join us live in the class here in a few minutes. It's been a busy day. I wanted to teach it earlier, but it just didn't work out. It's been a busy day today. Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. A lot of people still mistakenly think that Africa was named after a Roman general named Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. That's false. There's a few reasons why it's false. Number one, his last name, his surname, his last name, his family's last name was not Africanus, it was Scipio. Okay. He lived from 236 BC, before the Common Era, to 183 BC. 246 to 183 BC. All right. Now, the word Africanus the word Africanus is Latin. Okay. And if you look at Cassell's Latin English Dictionary, this is the 2002 edition. Cassell's Latin English Dictionary, page 11, in the entry for afear, A-F-E-R, and J.A. Rogers talks about afear as well. It says Africanus, belonging to Africa. The word Africanus means belonging to Africa. It says especially as a surname conferred upon two of the Scipios. Okay. Now, Publius Cornelius Scipio takes the surname Africanus after the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. The prefix Afri refers to the Afri, who are a group of Black African people in Algeria and Tunisia. Because Africa, that Latin suffix ca, denotes land. Africa actually translates basically as land of the Afri. Who are the Afri? A-F-R-I. Who are the Afri? The Afri are a group of Black African people in what today is called Algeria and Tunisia. Historically, that area is what was called Carthage. Now, this is from page 14 and 15 of African People in World History by Dr. John Henrik Clarke. And it says, after the rise at the bottom of the page, last paragraph, the Nile Valley's first age of high cultural grandeur lasted until the eve of the Christian era. Some aspects of it survived the Greek and Roman occupation of parts of North Africa. After the rise and decline of Greek civilization and the Roman destruction of the city of Carthage, and the Romans destroyed Carthage in 146 BC, and the destruction of the Roman city of Carthage, the Romans organized the conquered territories into a province they called Africa, A-F-R-I-C-A, a word derived from Afri, A-F-R-I, a word derived from Afri, the name of a group of people about whom little is known. This was a new name because previously all dark-skinned people were called Ethiopians. Since the Greeks referred to Africa as Ethiopia, the land of the burnt-faced people, because Ethiopia is a Greek word coming from that Greek prefix Ethiops. Okay, and when you study Greek mythology, and I took a Greek mythology class in high school and studied it after high school also, but when you study Greek mythology, they tell you that Zeus, okay, I'm breaking up. Okay, can you all hear me okay? Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Let's do sound. Testing 1 3. Let me see. Let me refresh the screen. Hold on. Stand by. Testing 1 2 3. Can you all hear me? Testing 1 2 3. Testing. You should be able to hear me now. Testing 1 2 3. Checking the sound. Testing 1 2 3. It's unmuted, so you should be able to hear. Testing, testing. Testing 1 2 3. The sound is low. Hold on. I'm not sure why the sound volume should not be low. Just a second here. Okay, turn up your sound volume. You should be able to hear okay. 1 2 3. I need to do a sound check. No sound at all. Hold on. Let me refresh the screen again. I don't know why there's no sound. All right, testing. Can you hear me? Testing. Can you hear me? All right, we've got Willie. I'm trying to do a sound check. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing. 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 The sound is low. Just a second. Hold on. Testing. Okay, can you hear me? Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I hear it coming through on my phone now. I just turned off the air conditioning because I had the air conditioning here in the room, on in the room, and I can hear it coming through. I'm monitoring on my smartphone, and I can hear the sound. Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3. So I can hear the sound come through. Okay, we'll continue. You should be able to hear me. They said the volume is low. Let's see here. Let's turn it up a little bit more. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. It should be louder now. And if we do, okay, that's about as loud as I can get it. Still very low. Refresh your screen. Refresh your screen if it's very low. I don't know why it's coming through very low. It should not. This is, but just so you know, that my online class, I don't teach on Facebook or YouTube. We teach that in my online school. I use Crowdcast for that. So we don't have these type of technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on with Facebook and YouTube, but I don't teach the class on Facebook and YouTube. Let's see here. Microphone access. I don't know why the volume is low like that. But anyway, let's continue. Okay. So let me know how I'm coming through. Let's see. Audio default audio put video general. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're going to continue here. So we're talking about Hannibal Barca. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're talking about Hannibal Barca, and we were dealing with Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. And I was explaining why Africa is not named after a Roman general, why that's false. And I hear people on radio shows saying that, Africa is named after a Roman general, things like this. Okay, that's a lack of really understanding of language. Okay, let me try this. Just say, let me I'm running through a 12 channel mixer. Let me try to reconnect to the laptop. Just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hear it coming through barely. I don't know what's going on.